The best salespeople in the world study. I'll say that again. The best salespeople in the world study. Pick up the phone. If every other one else is sending emails, be the one that picks up the phone. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to the next one. That guy was obviously a tire kicker. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Sales Circle. Our question and answer episode is back. For those of you that have listened to the podcast before, several weeks ago, maybe months ago actually, we released an episode where it was solely answering your sales questions. And we are back with another episode of that. Today, my job is to run through a list of questions that have been sent in by our listeners, by our viewers, and for me to go ahead and answer them. I've had a quick glance through. I've not sort of spent enough time to look at them to kind of work out answers. I'll be honest, I want to do that off the cuff. But there are enough questions there to answer sales questions based around beginners, intermediates, experts, and everything else in between. My name is Rob Spence, your host for today's episode. The Sales Circle podcast, as you know by now, is your sales podcast. It is designed to help you to increase your sales. Sorry, allow me just to get a bit more comfy. To increase your sales, whether you are a salesperson, whether you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, a CEO, a sales manager, someone looking to set up a business. This podcast is designed to help you improve your sales and effectively get more customers and effectively make more money, which is great. And I cannot wait to share with you today's episode. Shall we jump in? So without further ado, let's get into these questions. Now, I've just got to get my show notes over here. Every episode we do share questions. So if you ever have a sales question, maybe you're struggling with objection handling, maybe there's a certain prospect that you're struggling to open up, maybe there's a sale that's just sat in your pipeline that won't move, write in. There's a number of ways you can do that. You can email thesalescircleofficial@gmail.com. You can reach out to us on social media, or failing all of that, just find me on LinkedIn. As I said, my name is Rob Spence. And shall we jump into the first question? This one says, from Sarah, how do I get over the fear of rejection when cold calling or pitching? Gosh, this microphone stand, if it falls down one more time, we are going to fall out. Bear me 2 seconds. There we go, that should be better. So, how do I get over the fear of rejection when cold calling or pitching? That one's from Sarah. Well, I get asked this a lot. And actually, when you look at sales psychology, when you look at the reasons why sales teams are underperforming and sometimes why individuals are underperforming, sometimes there is a form of fear. And actually, when you break down these barriers, when you break down these chunks, the majority of the time, it does come down to a fear of rejection, which I'm going to put my sort of caveat, sort of my stake in the ground here and say, it's common. We all go through it. I myself used to get fearful of rejection. Even now, sometimes, I don't know what it is that those one or two prospects, those one or two proposals I send out that seem to take me a bit longer. And actually, I think for me, that's because I'm fearful of being rejected. So I guess the question says, how do we get over that fear? Well, let's break it down to maybe sort of 3 tips potentially. My tip number 1 is to know your product, your service, and your offering absolutely inside out. If you are being rejected, and sometimes that comes down to a lack of authority and a lack of confidence. So if you know that inside and out, then you should be absolutely fine. My second tip is to take every rejection as a learning. If you are being rejected, don't take it as a punch in the face. Don't take it as a slap around the chops. Don't take it as something that's going to hurt you. Think of it as a learning. I know it's cheesy, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Sometimes that feedback you can understand on your own, and you can kind of go, oh yeah, I got rejected because of A, B, and C. But don't be afraid to ask the prospect, hey, listen, absolutely, I know you're going to go elsewhere. I know you're not going to be using this, but just for my feedback, is there anything I could have done differently? Is there anything we as a company could have done differently? If you ask the question, you're going to find out, right? And finally, the third one is just do it in practice. I think now my fear of rejection is less because I've been rejected so many times. It doesn't matter. It's happened so many times. I know that there's another opportunity around the corner. I know that it's not the last gasp, the only salesperson in my pipeline. So practice and get over it. Really, actually, I shouldn't have said get over it. That sounds a bit harsh, but just do it. We recommended a book on last week's podcast called "Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway" by Susan Jeffers. Pick that book up and learn her techniques. I think it's a good way. Got a question here. This one's from Anonymous. What's the best way to start a sales conversation with someone I've never met? Goodness, look, I think there's loads of differentiating factors in this. It depends whether that's face-to-face. It depends whether it's via LinkedIn, via email. I think the key thing we've got to remember is to not try and sell too soon and too fast, okay? I think when we go into any sales conversation, the worst sales conversations are where it's straight away, boom, I want to sell to you, boom, you're going to be my customer, boom, let me pitch. And it puts people off. And especially that happens a lot during, LinkedIn conversations and, during emails as well. Just have a conversation, just find those common pieces of interest and just sort of engage in a more value given way. If anyone's trying to sell to me, let's reverse engineer this. If someone was selling to me, I would much prefer someone talk to me, engage with me, learn a bit more about me, and just generally have a conversation. Over time, that sales conversation could happen, but I'd rather someone take me to dinner before I jump into bed with them. And I think because a lot of salespeople are so inclined and so motivated to get a sale on, within a day, within a week, within a month, they forget about these touch points. We know that the most sales occur after 7 to 12 touch points. So what can we do to carry on that conversation, to engage with those people and to ensure that we have a longer term sales conversation over a period of time, and then we can sell? I've got another one here from Pete. Thank you for the question, Pete. Pete says, how can I sell without sounding pushy or desperate? Once again, a lot of my sales training is based around how we sell without selling, quote unquote. No one likes the pushy salesperson. No one likes, the snake oil salesperson, right? And I actually think sales, if done correctly, is an extension of good customer service. I think if you offer good service and help your customers, then lo and behold, you're absolutely fine. Once again, actually kind of correlates to that last question we had. If we try and sell too soon, if we try and push too soon without knowing actually the pain points and the desire levels of our prospect, then 100% we're going to sound pushy. We're going to sound desperate. And we hear the term commission breath, people that are just eager to get that sale. I think if you're not trying to sound pushy, build the relationship first, build rapport first, build conversation, build trust, and then try and sell. Look, I'm not deviating away from the fact that actually sales is more than just friendships, but we like to buy from those that we know, like, and trust, right? The best way to catch a cat is to offer the cat something as opposed to trying to chase the cat. So actually, really, if we sound pushy or desperate, we end up pushing people away, right? So I think I'm going to more of a consultative-led way of selling. So ask more questions, understand pain points, have a conversation, and then the sales opportunity will kind of open itself up, really. Right. So, okay, how do I know when to push for the close and when to back off? Fantastic question there, Jack. Thank you. Once again, it will depend. Product or service, it will depend on each situation. I think really what we need to do as salespeople is look out for those buying signals. We need to pick up on the cues and the clues that our prospect is saying to us. And I've had it so many times, not just with people trying to sell to me, but even people interviewing with me, trying to get a job with me. Sometimes they over talk. And what happened, the way I try and describe it, right, is to think of a thermometer and trying to boil a pot of pasta. If we're trying to boil a pot of pasta, we need to get that 100-degree mark, right? We need to get that boiling pot, boiling mark, so that 100 degrees. If we're encouraging touch points and asking the right questions, we'll see that temperature rise and rise and rise and rise. When it gets to 100 degrees, that's our chance to stop. If we stop following up and if we stop communicating, if we stop talking, then that temperature will drop. If we oversell and overtalk and keep pitching and keep pushing, what happens? We go above the 100 degrees and that then burns the pasta. So we need to get them to 100 degrees. So that's the best time to close a deal. Now, of course, how do we know when the pot's boiling? How do we know we're at 100 degrees? Well, look, we're looking out for those non-verbal and those verbal clues. So we're looking for the nods of the head. We're looking for the agreement. We're looking for the repeating of benefits. We're looking at people looking at sales collateral. We're looking at body language. We're looking at attention levels. Normally, actually, I think attention levels are really strong because you can see when someone starts to lose their attention. Their eyes might start to dot around. Their eyes might glaze over. They might stop repeating things. They may stop yesing and umming and ahhing. Their head's taking them to what they're having for dinner that night, right? As a salesperson, the best thing to do is no matter what, even if your sales director has said, no, you must go through this pitch, read the script, top to bottom, left to right, you must go through the presentation, blah, blah, blah. Even if that's the case, when those clues start to show, take a step back, utilize what we call a test close, which we're going to utilize, and we're going to talk about the test close actually in next week's episode, which is perfect timing. And then we're going for a close. So thank you for the question. So what we got here, what should I do when a prospect goes cold or ghosts me? So look, I love this question because it gets asked a lot, and I believe we did actually release an episode just on ghosting not so long ago. Once again, it's a key thing I get asked about when I deliver sales training. Ghosting, in my opinion, can occur for a number of reasons. Sometimes that is because you've bored your prospect to death. It could be that they see no value in you or no value in your product or your service. It could be that actually they've got other things and other priorities going on. Normally, what happens in a ghosting situation is the salesperson has sent 15 emails, sometimes not even that many. They've sent 3 or 4 emails, and the prospect's just not getting back to them. And they go, yeah, I'm going to move on to the next one. That guy was obviously a tire kicker. She was obviously a time waster. And actually, look, your sales conversation has to be exciting. Your follow-up has to be exciting. If you're sending email after email after email and you're getting no response, think, what can I do to encourage a response? Can I sometimes switch up my method of conversation? So could I use LinkedIn, WhatsApp? Can I use direct mail? Can I show up at their offices? Can I pick up the phone? Can I send a text? Can I send them a video? Can I send them a gift? Whatever it is, right? We can do all that. But sometimes actually the content of what we're saying is boring. Hey guys, I'm just following up. Hey guys, just checking in. Just want to make sure you got the proposal. It's boring and gets us nowhere, right? So why don't we perhaps mix up the tool that we're using or the method or the mode to deliver the message, but let's change the message. Let's sing them a song. Let's show up at their offices with a bag of donuts. Let's send them some books from Amazon. Let's send them a little afternoon tea hamper from Amazon. There's many people in the room now going, oh my gosh, no, we can't do that. We can't afford that. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Right? Sack that off. A £15 afternoon tea set from Amazon, like a little hamper box, right, is worth it if you're going to make £1,000, £10,000, £100,000 worth of profit from that customer. And if there's any finance guys in your department that disagree with that, send them my way, show them my video, right? The problem is a lot of sales directors get into finance mode. A lot of financial directors see it on the balance sheet or see the receipt come through and go, oh my gosh, oh no, this is horrendous. We've just spent so much money. Sack that off. Surely if you're trying to do business with someone, you need to send them a gift. You need to send them something that wakes them up. There's something that breaks the cycle. Surely if someone's ghosting you and actually you know that once upon a time they were a hot prospect and you want to find out why they're not buying from you, send them something. Once again, let's rein it back in. I feel like I've got a bit over eggy there. Handwritten letter works well. Picking up the phone works well. And, changing the way we contact, instead of saying, hey, just checking in, just following up, just wanted to see if you got my proposal, blah, 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 an easily deletable action, an easily deletable thing. Send them value, send them an article, send them a case study. Hey, listen, I know you're probably still just making your mind up on who to use. I thought this case study would be of relevance to you. I recorded this podcast last week, which talks about how we differentiate from other suppliers. I thought it might be worth a listen on your commute into work. Try and mix something up. Sell without selling. I could talk for hours about that, so I hope you don't mind me getting a bit excited there. Got one here from Tina. Thank you for the question, Tina. How can I stand out when I'm selling in a crowded or competitive market? Once again, a key one right now. The problem is like the modern day consumer, whether we are selling B2B or B2C, we've got choice. And my gosh, we have got so much choice. If we, I can go on my phone right now and I can search for an array of people and get the right results, right? And, find different options. But actually, we've got to think what stands us apart. And sometimes for many people, that's the service, the customer service, and you as a salesperson. Allow me to share with you a story recently, a bad experience I've had, and it's really angered me up. And Jack, who edited these up, make sure you grab some of this as some shorts, because this is great. Recently, I needed a skip, okay? I needed a skip. Now, if you search for skips on Google or anywhere, there's an array of skip companies that would deliver to me, that would deliver to my address. My gosh, trying to book that skip was probably one of the hardest things I've had to do in a while. Okay, so I've used this company before, so I assume there'll be some form of loyalty. I assume my details will be on their systems. I emailed them first away, and I used words to the effect of, "Hey guys, how are you? Would like to book another skip, ideally the same size as before." I can't remember which one it was because I'm not a skip expert. "And as before, I'd like the delivery details as below. Can this be delivered, do you think, either Friday evening or Saturday morning?" Sent the email. I get an email back quite quickly, probably within 24 hours, which is good. That email says, "Yes, we can do this. Can you please call us so we can take payment?" Straight away, boring. I've emailed you because I'm busy as a customer. I've emailed you because I believe, well, on the bottom of my email signature is my landline number, and you should have my mobile number from before. So call me. Or if that's not the case, email me back and say, "That's absolutely fine. What's your number? I'll give you a call. We'll get it booked in. We'll take payment." Obviously, that's then sat in my inbox and I've got busy. 3 or 4 days pass. I hear nothing from this company. I then call them up and say, "Hey, look, sorry, just calling. Oh, sorry, no one's here to take payment. You're going to have to call back tomorrow." Okay, great. Call back tomorrow. Lo and behold, call back tomorrow. "Oh, yeah, I think we can do it. Not a problem. Oh, we don't do that size skip anymore." And this is what I don't want to bore you with the story too much, but there was to and froing, back and forth over several emails to get this blooming skip delivered. It was hell. Did they make the buying journey very easy? Not at all. Have they encouraged me to use them again? No. Have they encouraged me to recommend them? Absolutely not. Will I ever use them again? No, because pardon the pun, their service was rubbish. So the point of the matter, and I'll go off on a weird random tangent, and allow me to go back to your question. Sorry, how do I stand out? It's human connection, right? I've had a bad experience there with this skip company for an order value that was worth approximately 200 quid. So it's not the biggest of things, but it's not the smallest of things. But you got to think of the lifetime value of me as a customer. Small thing here. And this is what really bugs me with companies like this. And please do listen up. Please do pay attention. I've now booked 2 skips with that company to the same address using the same contact details. Not one person in that company. Now, I've spoken to about 4 people on the phone within that company now and had email correspondences with 3. Not one of them has said, "Absolutely, hey, listen, while I get that book, what you got going on? What's happening?" If they'd have asked me that question, even just that question, "Hey, I see you've ordered, a couple of skips from us. Are you renovating a house? If you don't mind me asking, what's the project?" If they'd have asked that question, I would have said, "Absolutely, I am renovating a house. This is kind of phase 2 of the project. We're probably actually going to need another skip. Hey, look, fantastic. I hope it's not too much hard work. Just so I can kind of start to plan and prepare. When do you think you'll need the next skip? Do you want me to give you a call in a few weeks?" Boom, that company then straight away has got potentially another sale. Now, once again, for the sake of asking one question, to bring in an order value worth of £200, in my opinion, is not so bad. So, sorry, I keep going off on tangents. This bloody skip company's angered me. So if you are in a position where you want to stand out, have conversations, talk to people, pick up the phone. If everyone else is sending emails, be the one that picks up the phone. If everyone else is the one that kind of, oh no, we only book people in via email, do it differently. Stand out from the crowd. Be willing to help. Be willing to engage. Be willing to converse, is my opinion. Well, look, we're kind of smashing through these questions. I mean, I've got another, 7, 8, 9, 10, another 6 or 7. Will we get through them all? I do not know. Let's take a quick pause for these messages, and I'll be back in just a second. As well as a podcast host, a managing director, and a sales trainer, I'm also the author of several sales books. Conveniently laid behind me, we have Relationship Selling, The Paragon Mindset, and A Month to Improve Your Sales. If you've stumbled across this podcast and you'd like to develop your sales skills in more detail, and you'd like to learn more about sales in your own time by digesting information, then please do consider picking up one of my books. They're available on Amazon. All you've got to do is search for me, Robert Spence, or search for the individual book titles, and you'll see them. They're available in Kindle, they're available in paperback, and very soon, ideally, they'll be available in hardback. Each one is an easy to read book, shouldn't take you too long to get through them, but they've got rave reviews all over Amazon and online, and have helped salespeople all over the world. If you want to carry on your learning journey as a salesperson, then these books are for you. Welcome back to the Sales Circle podcast. Allow us to quickly jump in because we're slowly running out of time, and I want to get through these quickly. So the next one here is, what's the one thing most salespeople get wrong in their follow-up process? Oh, do I have to nail it down to one? I can't nail it down to one. No, I can't do one. Right. One of the things people do wrong is they don't follow up. They send the proposal, they send the quote, they have the sales conversation, and then they don't follow up. They don't get in touch. And even, allow me, once again, talking about my house, on day one of moving into my house, which was December, I messaged a locksmith and said, look, I'm going to need some new keys cut for the new house. Just moved in. I know about the security implications, X, Y, Z. Can you organise coming over for a bit of a quote? Yeah, absolutely. When would you like to come over? In the process of moving house, I've ignored that. I've left it. I've ignored it. Not one follow-up. So salespeople forget to follow up. I think, as we said earlier, I think they utilize the wrong ways to follow up. They just send emails because it's easier, it's quicker, and they forget about the messaging. They have fun. They don't talk. They don't build a communication point. They don't allow me to want to follow up. Did you get my proposal? Yes, I did. That's the answer to your question. So it's hard to nail it down to one, but I hope that helps. Oh, I love this one. And actually, I've got an online course available that talks all about this. How do I handle price objections without offering a discount straight away? Love that. Look, I think salespeople and business owners go too quick for the discount. And all that does is it ruins your profit margin. It makes you look weak, and it really devalues your product and service. And actually, if you think about it, we can all just quickly reduce our prices, but it just creates a race to the bottom. So sell value. What can you either sometimes elevate and talk about more within your sales pitch to showcase that value? But beyond that, what can you do to potentially talk about how, what can you add into the sale? Look, we can't discount because I've taken it down as much as I can, but actually, what if I offer free delivery? What if I come out and set it up for you? What if I offer you 6-month warranty, 12-month warranty? What can you add onto the sale without taking away? Of course, the latter of those two options I don't think is as good as the former. I always think selling value is a great salesman's tool and a great salesman's trick. However, the latter will work, but once again, will affect profit margins and so on and so forth. So this one here is from Callum. What should I focus on if I want to improve my sales results quickly? Oh gosh, probably too much to talk about in the remaining, what we got, 5 minutes, give or take. The best salespeople in the world study. I'll say that again. The best salespeople in the world study. They research, they practice, they enhance their skills. How you do that is entirely up to you. That could be spending time with mentors and peers. It could be time spent on seminars, webinars, training, coaching, mentoring. Reading is a fantastic way. As we can see, I position myself in front of one of my bookcases because it showcases some of the books that are on offer. We spoke about in the promo 3 of the books that I've got available. And in a minute, I'm going to recommend a book as well. So read, watch videos, study, practice, and seek that feedback. And I'll tell you what, just because we do need to do a book review, I'll ask a final question. Does social selling actually work? And if so, how should I be using LinkedIn? Wow, good question. And once again, we did do a full episode on this not so long ago. So if you have got time, go and find that episode. It wasn't too long ago, maybe a couple of months ago. Social selling is vitally important for salespeople in this day and age, I think. And I think there's two ways to look at it. I think there's the way of opening up the net, but then also spear fishing. And allow me to explain those. I think the best salespeople really rely and invest in their personal brand. So they will become an expert, they'll become an authority. What that does is that opens up the net so that people are more inclined to move towards them and find that individual to help them, to support them, to consult with them. We can also use social selling to spearfish, to go after those that we want to do business with. Social media is like literally, it's lifted the lid on so many people's lives. Back in my day, we used to have the phone book and we'd have names and telephone numbers. That's all we'd have, right? Now, I can find someone's telephone number and their name. Through social selling, I know sometimes what they did at the weekend, if they've got kids, who their favourite football team is, what sports they like, what they do in their spare time. What that then allows me to do is have fun and engaging conversations. So one of the questions that was asked earlier, how do I start a conversation? Lo and behold, using social selling, I know what barriers to talk about, what barriers to break down. So look, we're going to have to wrap up because I've spoken so much on this podcast and we're quickly coming up to the half an hour mark. I'm going to give a minute from our book recommendation of the week. So sit tight and we'll be back in a sec. So every week on the podcast, we recommend, or I recommend, a book, a sales book or a business book or a mindset book, one that I believe will help you increase your sales. Now, recently we recommended another book by the same author. And to be fair, I'd recommend all of his books. And this book is fantastic and talks a lot about influencing and persuasion. I'm going to introduce and recommend Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Green Book of Getting Your Way. As you may know, Jeffrey Gitomer not only is a great sales trainer, a sales author, but is funny. He's entertaining. He kind of breaks down the sort of monotony of boring sales training and coaching. I mean, I don't know if that'll focus on that. I mean, look at him. Let me get in the lights a bit more. Look at him there, just flying through the air on a magnet, right? All of his books, well, it depends which ones obviously you buy when published, but they've normally got a colour. They are a lovely velvety kind of fabric feel. They're hardback. For the formatting as well, I think is fantastic. If you're pushed for time and maybe not so much of a reader, there's minimal things here to kind of overwhelm you. The book actually talks about the power of persuasion, how to get people to, or how to get you to believe in yourself so that your prospects believes in you as well, how to write, how to create a presentation, and ultimately how to get your own way. If you're a salesperson, you've got to get your own way, and that's why I recommend this book. Gosh, I'm rushing through this. I've got 30 seconds left. So thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of The Sales Circle. Before you go, just a reminder, we publish these episodes every single Thursday. The audio hits podcasting streams at 5:30 in the morning. Perfect for you going to work. The video hits YouTube in the evening. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you follow, and send it to at least one of your colleagues. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Rob Spence. All the best. And that's it for another episode of The Sales Circle. Make sure you hit that follow button, join us over on social media, and we'll see you next week.